All right, we'll go ahead and get started this morning. I'm Jenny Knight, the administrator here at Harrisville. We've got with us this morning Chad Holbrook, our planning commission chair, and our city engineer Matt Robertson, and we're excusing our public works director Justin Shinfield. He is attending another training this morning. So we'll go ahead. I'd like to welcome Ryan and Barker from the Northview Fire that's here as well.
Right on cue.
That's right.
I like that.
We are excusing the other utility economists, and Randy won't be with us this morning. So let's go ahead and get started with our first item, which is the proposed commercial site plan for Butters. Okay.
It's an Alaskan.
What's that?
It's an Alaskan entity.
Butters.
You might have one.
Is it the same? Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about your site plan here?
It just shows the berms and the property lines. There's really nothing else to show. We're gonna put a fence or something up front after you guys tell me what type of fence you want.
So what is the proposed use? What are you proposing?
Construction, sales, and service. And there's a difference in what that means. Your definition excludes automobiles. It doesn't exclude anything else. We're selling selling and servicing large construction equipment. If it was a truck, I think that's a conditional use. Incidentally, your reference in your conditional use refers to communications towers, and it says like -8 and it goes communication towers. When it should be like -6 and refer to, I think, your large trucks.
So our construction, sales, and service means an establishment primarily engaged in construction activities and incidental storage on lots other than construction sites. It includes retail and wholesale of paint, building material, fixtures, and hardware. It excludes automotive related uses.
Yeah.
So it's retail or wholesale sales
Of construction items.
of construction. Right. And you're proposing that on this new site plan, right?
That's what we're
So
saying.
where will you be conducting those sales?
Well, the sale will actually probably happen online.
So you're just using the site for
Sales, and there was some service, but we had to fix it. So that's why it got parked there, because it's the only place we could get the wires.
So is this related to the neighboring business?
In some ways, yeah. I mean,
So it's a site plan amendment to an existing business?
I think it qualified as a new business.
Okay, and you're conducting that business out of what location on your site plan?
Well, the office and the parking and stuff is all on the existing Butters location.
So that would be a site plan amendment because that's an existing site
If you
plan.
want a picture of our offices, so the offices are on one parcel and the construction, sales, and services on a different parcel. So one parcel is where the sales and service happens, which incidentally can happen on the other side of the fence too.
Okay, so what I'm saying here from the city's code and how we're interpreting the purchase, this business on your Butters property was already an existing business.
Right.
You acquired more property And so
A related entity acquired more property.
okay. And now
Which
with the expansion of your existing business.
Not intending, we're not considering it an expansion. Because we don't want to go through all the crap of trying to bring the whole existing business up to some standard that it can't possibly get to.
So that's where the city's issue is if you're operating a new business, you need to have a location on this that is related to your business to operate a new business. If you're opening a new site plan, and you'll go through a site plan approval process for a new business.
Right.
If you're going to operate your business, if you're going to operate your business out of the existing building, it's a site plan amendment because you already have a site plan approval for that, and you're amending it because you're going to now be storing or using this space to.
So we're not
in the same space.
We're going to share office space with an existing business as far as office space.
But that's amending the use of that building. You're changing the use of it. You're adding another business, and you're storing or you're using property neighboring.
Wait a minute. We're not amending the site plan. We have a new site plan, new business.
Okay, where then with your new business, where are you operating that business on this site plan that you just?
The whole front of it's the construction, sales and service, and they answer the phone next door. Or at my house. Or in Alaska.
So here's the issue with using that for storage. Outdoor storage isn't
outdoor storage.
But that's okay.
You want to say it's storage. I'm saying it's sales and service.
Okay.
But your cells are going out of a different building. Or are you going to have a new building on the new site?
No buildings, and it's extremely temporary. As soon as it's sold, it's gone and not coming back. And hopefully, all the other stuff that you guys don't like that's grandfathered, hopefully can go to and we come with a new site plan.
But even if you're using that for sales, only a percentage of the property is allowed for storage. 10% of the property would be allowed for storing outdoor equipment in the commercial zone.
Depending on which one of the versions it depends on which one of those lines you read. There's not those exclusions for construction, sales, and service. You have zero restrictions on construction, sales, and service. And I'm not trying to, I really don't want to fight with you, but then too, you need to notice that when you come down to the large, whatever stuff, you're, so
you're saying construction, sales, and service, which is not in the.
That's right.
It's in the manufacturing, so it's a permitted use as long as you are doing under the definition.
Makes that definition.
Right.
Which my argument would be that it does, because it's not excludes only automobiles. It's only construction related sales and services excluded.
But explain to me what the equipment that's on the property is used for. Maybe that would help me understand how it's construction sale.
Most of it's for gravel pit.
And you're selling that equipment?
Yes, because we no longer have a gravel pit.
So all of the items that are on that parcel are for purchase?
Yes, they are.
So so you're storing them on that parcel to sell them, I guess.
Well, the biggest problem is after 20-something years of use, they needed some repairs, so we serviced or repaired them and made them so they could go someplace else and somebody would take them besides the scrapyard. And we think we have a buyer too, which would be nice. And if we can't find a buyer, we can move them to West Ogden.
So here's the outdoor display of products, because if you're selling those are your products if they're for sale. So here's our code that outlines the outdoor display of products. So you'll need to meet these standards They need to be, if they're displayed for sale, they shall be located behind any required landscaping setback. So you'll need to go through our landscaping code.
And we put the berm there. We're gonna put a fence there. We've got a trailer there, which we can move back. We're simply trying to do our best to screen stuff, but you guys told us what you want.
So you do have an issue with E because it says any stacked material shall not exceed 6 feet in height when placed between the front property line and the main building. You don't have a main building.
You want me to just set a storage container on there, call the main building?
No, I certainly don't.
Because I'm trying
Anything
to say,
that you're going to do for a main building needs to meet our building standard. What I'm trying to say here is you're either amending an existing site plan or you're applying for a new business and you need to come into compliance with a new business.
right, but
Well,
I think
what would the, if he's amending the existing site plan, what requirements would that entail?
You'd have to bring the entire site plan of the existing building up to code to amend, which is what he doesn't want.
Okay.
So then if he's doing a new business, he's applying for a new site plan. But what I'm having an issue from is that you're operating a business from a parcel and you don't have a business location there. You don't have anywhere to do your construction, sales, and service from that location. That's where the issue is.
That's actually very common.
Okay, I'm trying to think of another one that we have in Harrisville.
The only exception that I know of in Utah law are things that car sells, because they have to have a place to keep the titles, so somebody come and inspect titles and stuff. Things that have a government inspector that comes to check deeds and titles, those are the only ones that's required to have any type of office. No other businesses. You can have a landscape yard. You can have, they don't have to have a, you go meet somebody, they call you on the phone, you go meet them, they pick out their crews.
Just don't agree with that. But let me see what our code says.
When Mr. Junk, your former city attorney, before they made him a judge and stuff, was here, and we were going through this type of crap with him, we pointed out that his office on his letterhead was at his house. It's not uncommon.
I'm not sure that that's so the same.
Different businesses. I'm just saying that different people have offices separate from this gentleman is doing business here in Harrisville, and he does not have an office here. Probably. Not sure. I think you do. Public Works Director might, but I'm pretty sure this guy's office is in Jones and Associates building somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. But he conducts business in Harrisville City from that location, and he shows up here sometimes to do business like he is right now. But he doesn't have an office here or a building here or anything else. I'm just saying it's not unusual for people to do business of whatever nature in this matter. You don't have to have an office, except for specific things in the code that say thou shalt have an office on the premises, which there's only 2 or 3. They're all related to titles, real estate titles, car titles. They're usually so the government inspector has a place to go. And Utah solves it for everything else by saying, if you're going to do any business in Utah, you have to have a registered agent. And in this case, a registered agent is our attorney, Joe Chambers, and Logan.
So let me just repeat back so that I'm clear on what you're proposing on your site plan. You're proposing that the product is construction sales,
is
retail sales,
equipment, yeah, the construction equipment, and it's
okay,
specifically
no, but you said it's sales, though it's related because all of that equipment on the product is for sale. And you're not going to have an office location.
Our office would be Well, the guys
on this site plan, you're not gonna have it on this location.
the guy that's actually in charge of saying yes or no on the cells is generally in Alaska. Or camped out in Scare Canyon in the cabin. He had a house in Pleasant View where his wife lives.
So outside of not having an office, you'll need to meet the standard for.
If it's a new site plan, I guess what?
Right, that's what I'm just
Right.
diving into, so.
And if there
You've
is
got
an
the 3,000
office
square feet. Outdoor storage. You have a 50-foot front setback.
Which isn't a problem.
well, what zone is he in?
Commercial.
So he's got 100-foot setback.
Oh, yes,
outdoor.
thank you. Okay, thanks, Matt. I was looking at the manufacturing.
Yeah.
So you've got a 100-foot setback from the front.
So I think with the exception of the trailers, I think one stacker or something that might only be like 80. I can go.
You won't have any. It's online sales, I assume. You don't have anybody coming to the property. You don't have access off of Highway 89. You're not going to have anything going in that
Took off
direction.
the access out of 89. One of the reasons we bought, well, we had the property under
That's where I'm
contract
just having an issue with where
for 20 something years. On a right of first refusal from the gentleman that went to buy with us there. We've got a right of first refusal on the adjacent property, and everything gets hopefully tore down. We come back with really something pretty that you guys like, but in the meantime, we're trying to stay in business so we can pay for everything.
So that brings up another question though. If this is a sales and you don't have access, how is this not related to the neighboring?
It is related.
So the access is through
But-
the access is through the neighboring.
The access is
business?
through the
So
neighboring.
you'll need a shared access,
Yeah, I guess.
because if you don't have, I'm trying to understand how people are gonna come, say somebody buys one of your construction products. How are they going to come and pick that up? Are you delivering it?
That's how we deliver it.
And what access are you using? If this is an independent business and not related to the construction sales that you're already
There
operating.
is an access that we have blocked in the front that can still be used, but
And you have permission from UDOT to use that access for this business.
it's an existing access.
For this business. If you change the use of it, you have to get a new permit through UDOT for that access.
Can they have an access agreement I
With
guess,
the neighbor.
The neighboring property, which is.
Would have to be a recorded access.
It's-
Access agreement to come through that property.
It's a recorded access for the.
You know, it would have to show, and it would have to be a new access agreement
Just saying,
with
'cause
your
you got-
neighboring property. That's what I'm getting at. So you have this frontage on Highway 89, and if you're not gonna use that access, you're gonna route all of the equipment through your existing business area, then you're gonna have to have a recorded access agreement with those properties, allowing those trucks, whatever you're delivering or somebody's picking up, regardless, you're gonna have a recorded access permit for that.
And that's probably your easiest.
We're
Bad.
probably not going to just generally abandon the access there.
Then you're gonna need an access permit through UDOT for changing the use, because it was a dairy farm. It was nothing, it was an abandoned use. You're gonna have to have a UDOT permit access for that. For sure.
Maybe. I know you're. saying
I'm gonna
for sure.
require it. You can go talk to UDOT on whether they'll issue it or not, but the
Okay.
city's gonna require it. For sure, if you're gonna change, especially in that intersection area. Yeah,
Right.
we would not allow a new access use on an existing access without
I'm
UDOT.
hoping we can push that one
Okay,
all the way back to the school. and tie the school in through the back and the other one in where the current access is and bring them together somewhere back by whatever the road is coming down the road knows.
So let's start there. You either, that's up to you. You either contact UDOT and get an access permit for the existing access to do your construction, sales, and service, or you record a shared access agreement with the neighboring property. And if you exit out to Larson Lane, that actually affects the current traffic on your current site plan and will have to be reviewed through the process through Planning Commission, because you're technically adding more traffic to a city street. And if you're going to access anything on Highway 89, again, that will fall under UDOT's jurisdiction for that.
So I don't want to argue the obvious, but if I access it from the existing one, or if I pull it onto the property that already has the access and the ability to sell equipment and the ability to do all this stuff. So if I go from this property to this property and then I drive onto the city street, so
you're changing the amount of traffic that comes down onto our street. Yes, you're increasing that access. That's why we're requiring the access agreement between the neighboring property, because you're using their resources to come to the city street and increasing a use on our street. Yes.
Right, but that could be if you get that access, agreement, you know, recorded with the other property owners, you submit that with your site plan, and then you can.
The bottom line is you're the same owners on some level.
Right. So you shouldn't have any issue getting that
hard.
No, I mean, I can get a signed access agreement from us to us. That's not a really hard thing to do. If you want a piece of paper that says that. And
any access onto Highway 89 at all would require a UDOT access permit. 100%,
because of the change of use.
Because you're changing the use.
You haven't, and maybe you go to them and
I'll keep the farm use for the rear of the property anyway. So I'll just have it go from through the front part of the property, the back part of the property, and keep the access just like it is.
I'm confused by what you just said. Please clarify.
The back part of the property is still agricultural.
Right.
So I'll keep the front access.
And you won't be using that for the construction, sales, and service.
And that's the plan. I don't have a problem saying I'm not going to, because it's not a good idea for us or for you.
Right.
I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just trying to make things work.
So, okay, let's go that direction then. You'll get either, again, if you're going to use that access on Highway 89 for anything construction, sales, and service related, you'll have to go through UDOT. Otherwise, we'll anticipate you'll submit an shared access agreement with butters, and then
I'll get you a shared access agreement.
And then you
that gets recorded, right, at the county, so that it goes.
And it'll be
it goes with the property. If you were able to ever to sell just that piece, go with that.
It would be a permanent easement across it.
Yeah, I'm working on some others that I think you're going to like, because we're going to try tying in the road all the way over to the school, which was supposedly your guys' desire. I'm not trying to cause problems with this.
We're just trying to get you in compliance with our code.
I know, and I'm trying.
That's why I'm
trying to work with the city, which is why it didn't take Bill's marvelous advice when you guys broke our supposable contract and let Thoroughbred Meadows rip us off $100,000 by not restoring our water. We didn't.
That's not part of this discussion. The discussion is related, but we have other people who are waiting for their project. So we're going to anticipate you'll update your site plan to include your access, whatever that looks like for you. You'll resubmit it.
And access, I'll say that it includes that it's both the agricultural use for the remainder of the property.
And then here's your
residential access for a future house.
Here's your other requirement for your site plan is your landscaping. And the big issue with your landscaping plan is you've got to have water. You have to have a secondary water system to address your landscaping requirements. So when you update your site plan with the access points, have your engineer review our landscaping code and add the required 15% landscaping.
There's not secondary landscaping. There's landscaping in the back since it's all.
We have a landscaping requirement.
I know there's no secondary. I believe we own the shares, but unfortunately, we can't get the water to the property, and you guys are actually the culprit. We're not talking about that.
We do have the landscaping requirements.
I know, I'll put in
landscaping. So you'll put
that
on there.
I'm just not sure how it's going to get watered, but yes, we have irrigation. It just has a problem getting there.
Okay. And you said you had the berm for the buffer.
Yeah, we put a berm
already on there. Maybe do you need any specifics about the berm?
Yeah, more than just a line that says berm. And it's just when they do the site plan, they'd at least have them show a grading plan that has contours or shows how they're going to construct it.
It's existing now.
It's existing now. Okay. Well, your site plan will show grades and elevations anyway.
My biggest question would be, where do you want the berm? Do you want it back next to the other building? Do you want?
I guess I'm confused if you say it's existing now,
yeah,
and then you're asking us where we want it.
So it's future on the edge of the right of way. You want the berm set back farther? I'll put the berm wherever you want the berm. There's a berm there, and right behind it, so you try to.
The screening requirement talks about.
It's right here, installing the continuous landscaped mount. That's what you're talking about, the berm, right?
Yeah, it's a berm. It's not landscaped yet.
Well, but sorry, that's one of the buffering screening requirements.
The state requested a moratorium on actually installing the landscaping, but the dirt's there.
Now this is when it's because the berm.
It's for the screening.
Yeah, it's and the screening. Because this screening requirement is talking about when you're next to residential. There's a screening requirement.
Oh, am I in the wrong one?
I can do
that.
Yeah, I don't
necessarily say you have to
actually believe it or not. I'll write these and stuff with Bill and with the planning commission. Bill was my support staff in Washington Terrace, and I was the planning commissioner, and I actually helped write your thing.
Well, then you would know what area I'm referring to as far as what berm requirements to put on your site plan then.
Yes,
okay.
However, there's a lot of discretion granted to the city. So before final construction, we put temporary stuff, I can move it. I'm trying to make everybody happy with the very best I can.
And because I don't know, when we talk about outdoor screening for outdoor storage, I don't know that a berm was required as a landscaping, right? I mean, berm can be part of that.
And there's
and then it requires the landscape setback.
Yeah.
To just, to screen the products.
The previous owner had the water directed so that it actually intentionally flooded our building.
So it says any required landscape setback area of the property. So that's 100 feet.
Right. I'd have to double check through here. I'm not really familiar with it.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do some homework on our end too. So
I've read it. There's a lot of unclear things.
Let's have you address the things that we've identified today, and then have you resubmit your site plan. And on our end, if in the meantime we become aware of anything else that's going to influence that, we will immediately let you know.
The best thing to do, if to get my attention, is to send me an email.
Sure.
By the time you send whatever, and you've been sending the butters construction, but which I usually get that a few days later. If you actually went through the process that it says, it would go to Logan and it would come, which just makes it more difficult to communicate. I answer emails.
We will respond to the email you used on the application.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll look for your updated site plan.
Does anybody want one of these to?
We just store everything digitally.
I'm just, one of the other things in your ordinance when you're fixing.
Yeah,
Says for me to bring these and not the electronic one, to give the electronic one.
we're aware.
That, yeah, that's something that needs to be updated.
And then your note, you have a note in your large, that refers to your large trucks that actually, instead of referring to large trucks, refers to the communication towers, just so you get everything straightened out so nobody gets confused.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
The access agreement with the water safety division, the guy kind of reviewed the exact plan and showing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, time, Jenny.
Let's move on to post development at 1875 North 750 West. Dave Erickson. Dave. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate the way you guys have this set up. I work in a lot of cities that don't have this sort of informal opening around, which could save everybody a lot of
Helps all of us.
a lot of time and unnecessary effort. So let me explain who we are and why we're here. Now, this piece of property has been, I know it's been looked at by other developers in the past. I'm not really exactly sure why it's been shot down, but my purpose here today is to kind of introduce who we are and try to get a sense from the city as to what might be able to be built here and what can't be built here. So let me introduce who we are real quick. I'm one of the principals of Leisure Villas. Leisure Villas is the largest developer of senior restricted communities along the Wasatch Front. We've built 2,000 plus homes, 20 communities. They're large. Our intent is to sort of create a community within the larger community for folks that want to stay in their community but don't want to deal with the yard work or can't walk up and down stairs, or they have a place in St. George and they want a place up here because the kids are still here, all those sort of issues.
Okay.
Now we just finished one, which we have a community that's just next to the Barn Golf Course in
North Ogden.
North
Familiar.
And that
is that the one between 2700 North and
it's right on the edge of Pleasant View, but it's actually in North Ogden. I worked with Matt Erickson on. He would be really familiar with this. Yeah, but you do. All the Matts.
yeah, exactly.
So we had such a demand in this area for what we do that we would love to do another one in this market. There's clearly a demand for a senior type product like we do. Now, back to the code. Okay, because listening to the previous guy, you guys obviously are pretty focused on the code. So let's start with the code. So the code has this at A1, current zoning. The general plan shows that it's 20,000 foot minimum lot size. Okay, now you've done projects in the past. Now normally I would say, well, that's a long shot to amend the general plan to allow for what we do. Now, what we have proposed is in anticipation, we're trying to kind of deliver what the intent of the code is and also deliver what we think is a needed product for the city and would be a benefit for the city. Because you don't have to build schools for higher costs for what we do, and most of our folks have the highest amount of disposable income in the city, and they already live here and they want to stay here. So in my experience, typically the first project we do in the city is kind of difficult because it's kind of a round peg, a square hole, and cities don't typically have a vehicle inside their ordinances that accommodate exactly what we do. So either have to do a senior overlay zone or some other PUD method to get it through the process. But after we do the first one, most cities want 2 or 3 or multiple projects because they recognize the impact on city services is equivalent, and I can demonstrate this. It's almost, it's actually lower, but it's essentially equivalent to what a half-acre lot impact is. That's because our homes, it's density. Well, what is density? Is it the number of homes per acre, or is it the number of people per acre? Well, we've always typically viewed it as homes, which makes sense, but on impact on city services basis, we average 1.7 people per home. We only get to 2 versus, let alone 3.5. Plus, there's no teenagers, there's no traffic. Literally, there's so little traffic coming out of these. It's much less than what you would get out of equivalent, half-acre lots. So, and then all the other utilities are less because, again, we have less people. So the only thing we have more of are actual homes. However, our homes are fourplexes, although we don't like using that term as sort of a short term, but they're basically the way they lay out. And maybe some of you have a chance to drive through our stuff up in North Ogden, but basically you get 4 times the home, whatever the number of, you get 4 times the homes packed into 1/4 the number of buildings. So from driving down the road, it looks like, duplexes, but you have more, you're able to fit more buildings on site, but the equivalent people density is roughly about a half-acre lot. So the question I have is basically, I want to throw it out to you and see, essentially, do I have a shot at a proposal like this where we wrap the front, we wrap the existing neighbors with half acres and back up against the crappy stuff along the railroad tracks, and it's a little wet on the north side. We haven't done a delineation study yet or a geotech. If I'm wasting everybody's time here, or if the city would have a positive, potentially positive reaction to having a nice upscale senior restricted community.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
So,
and so I gave you a little pitch of what.
Sure.
I'm a dog and pony chauffeur. I think it was now Jordan. I've got West Havens here. Anyways.
Well, I happen to have toured those, so I know exactly what your product is, and I know what you're saying. So to cut to the chase on the city side is, and I appreciate where you're coming from, because I agree with you on all of your points as far as the density, how many, the type of people that live there, the services that it demands on the city. And I wish, the truth, this is my opinion, not Harrisville City, but I wish we had more for our community as well. We have one north location that used to be, before the market changed, a hot commodity. There were waiting lists.
Palermo still?
No, it's Colonial Springs. It's an existing, it's almost 20 years old, but they're patio homes, but same concept. It's age restricted. So the issue the city has is, you're right, we do not have a code that allows, we don't have a senior overlay. The only multi-family use we have is a mixed use, which is kind of an overlay. The city has a mixed use map, and areas of the city have been identified that would be good for mixed use. And this parcel, unfortunately, is not in one of those mixed use zones. A number of years ago, we had a developer propose a cluster development, which was not, again, combined homes. It was just single family homes, but it was a cluster development under the R120, which is the half acre. And it was turned down. It was denied for the zoning change. There's a couple of other issues that impact this parcel. To address the railroad tracks, the city's become aware that there's a 60-foot property acquisition effort being made by UTA.
Oh, really? To
bring Front Runner up from its
60
location.
feet. Center line, or 60 feet on this parcel?
I believe it's from the existing property line going into.
Yes.
So that would be like a takings, or
they're working to acquire the property from any landowners through here. They're doing it all the way through here, all the way up and all the way to Brigham.
Actually, you know, that'd probably kill one building, but I think we could shift everything or flip them. But anyway,
So I bring
well, I
that to your
appreciate that.
attention.
Part of what
They've asked
I've done a lot of engineering questions. Like, I'm not even sure it's serviceable, to be honest with you.
We've looked at it. Well, if you want to keep going.
Well, let's finish the big picture.
The zoning, and Chad is our chair, but it would be spot zoning for a mixed use. It's not, if I show you the areas of the general plan.
Yeah, I have
you probably have already looked at
our
maps.
intent, I've got to have enough. I have to have enough property to create this community thing, because the thing that people don't get about successful senior communities, it's not the houses, it's not the sticks and bricks, although that's a part of it. You got to have them so they're comfortable for two, that can accommodate large family gatherings. But the key is the amenities. It's the $1 million of clubhouse and pool and theater and all the stuff that older folks want.
Quality of life.
Yeah, it's all about the quality of life, and so there's.
I hear you loud and clear, trust me. But
yeah,
it's not a my parents actually live in a similar community. It's how do we make that happen from the city side, right? What does that look like from a planning and zoning perspective? Because
and another problem I have is this is the difficult property from the ownership perspective. It's a divorce situation where the two parties hate each other, and I don't have a big fuse on it. So I've been in this. What do you mean? I've seen it all, because I've been defined as multifamily. I've been defined as cluster subdivision, like in Syracuse. I've been defined typically what we think we are is a 0 lot line attached home. Okay. That's how they have the same the fee simple ownership, just like a regular house. They just have 0 lot lines. That's kind of typically how we've been defined. But I've been in situations like Springville comes to mind, where we proposed a senior ordinance overlay. And that kind of gets you to the spot zoning or via a development agreement. Well,
this is where I was going to go with our mixed use. So if you decided it was worth your efforts to go that route, and aside from what you've already kind of outlined there with the impact of the UTA acquisition potentially, and you decided there was still enough space that you wanted to move forward with the project and it was still an interest to you, that the only option we have is to go the mixed use route. That's the only thing we have as far as.
So I can read the mixed use zone, see how does it have within that zone, does it allow for a development agreement?
We do master, that is, but this is the caveat. The entire negotiation takes place before the rezone. So you put in all of the effort, and it sounds like you've done that a little bit with providing the senior ordinance.
So a couple of quick questions. So when all this stuff happened concurrently, or do I have to amend the general plan first, then come back in, go for a zone change with this development agreement, or can they all happen simultaneously?
So that's a very good question, because we haven't had someone that wants to go the mixed use route and change our general plan yet. But yes, they can, because the negotiation, what you would be doing is you'd be asking the city to amend our infill map, our mixed use map, to include this parcel. That's the first step you would be asking. Then you would be asking.
Wait, so that's not,
because it's not.
Oh, so you'd have to amend the general plan to allow for that thing to be here.
It's not. So this is the map I was telling you. These are the outlined areas in the city that have already been designated for mixed use, and this unfortunately is not one of them. So you'd be asking them to amend this to allow for that parcel to be mixed use.
I guess I don't understand.
And then
I don't know why this couldn't all happen at the same time.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that that would be the first step. And then you would go through the negotiation process with your project. Yes.
Well, it would be just the agenda item prior to the rest of the agenda items, right? But it would all be done.
But the mixed use, well, the mixed use development ordinance requires.
I have to get that approved first.
Right. Well, it is the zone. That's what I'm saying. It
Yeah.
becomes the zone. The master development agreement has all the setbacks. It becomes the zone.
I think for your case, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but getting this added to the map would probably be your first step to see if you want to spend all that money and time.
Yes.
Working on your master development agreement and the rezone.
Thank you. That's much better said.
I guess what I don't get this, I mean, I don't live in the city, so I don't understand the process, but I've been through enough of these.
Sure.
Because
It's the timing issue is the critical part, not the spending the money. I mean, we're in the business. This is the business we've chosen. It's, you know, if you're not willing to spend money to do what you're trying to do, then you're in the wrong business. The killer is the time delay. I'm sitting here in the absolute worst time of the year to get anything done, right?
Well, and timing with our mixed use projects, the fastest one we've had go through is months of negotiation.
Okay, so basically, what I think I'm hearing you say is you're essentially negotiating the entire deal up front.
Yep.
Everything's on the table, including the MDA.
Yep.
Right, because that's the key to the whole deal.
right.
And then boom, okay, we put the mixed use in place and we approve the zone and then the MDA and then your prelim plat stuff, then you're modifying it, right?
Well, no, then you go through the subdivision application process.
But it's a much quicker, I think it can be a lot quicker because we've already gone through, you know, a lot of the.
Okay, so let me just get a handle on the, okay, so if we bag this whole thing and just stick to half-acre lots, which in this market, I'm not sure pencils.
Sure.
That's a much quicker, I still have to do, well, it's actually, I have to go for a rezone, but not, well, actually a general plan change too. It's,
No, the general plan shows our.
No, it does, no, you're right, it's just a rezone.
So it's a rezone for half acre, but you're asking us.
Talking how long?
Yeah, you're asking us to change our mixed use infill map to include that parcel to make it eligible.
That's if we go for this, which is what we wanted.
If you don't do that, then you could apply, which is consistent with our general plan. It's just a rezone for half acre lots.
Let me just ask you straight up, how long is the process and that would just be a prelim plan and a rezone, right? That's how that process would go. Yeah. I would be making application for a subdivision application. Sure. Okay.
But so, you might, but even within that, you could do
the cluster development under the R110. You could try that. That's the one I was referring to earlier. Right. We have a cluster development ordinance that allows the density, you get bonus density for meeting certain.
Right.
That's what I did. I did this in Syracuse. We did the same thing in Syracuse. And we were able to get to our density spike per acre, which used to be when I started this 20 years ago, that was high density. Now it's low density. It's still high density in Harrisville Road.
So there's those two options, and either one of those options, let me just say this, the ones that have made it through the planning commission into city council have had a unique element that's to the public's benefit. So our mixed use development has large portions of those developments are, parks and open space. One's almost 50% open space because of the floodplain.
That one's a cluster.
It is a cluster, but it had 36 acres to work with. So this one, but again, that's just information for you to utilize.
And I don't want to take up all the time, but wouldn't that take the same amount of process instead of going for the mixed use change? I would be going for a R110 cluster change. Yes. So it's the same amount. It just might be an easier.
But it's allowed
in the R120. Right.
Oh, I thought it had to go to an R110.
If you have enough,
it can go to an R110 if you have enough things to get bonus.
The problem, here's a couple problems with this one. And I have cut deals where we've given up parks area for the city and it's great win-win. I guess we could do that if I could get rid of some of the half-acre lots because we prefer not to do those, frankly. But what we can't do is have external, or what we want to avoid is public going through. I mean, just picture yourself, your grandma, they don't want to see a bunch of people they don't recognize running through there.
But let me also be clear that I don't know that those connected units would be considered cluster because they're still single family homes in a cluster development.
Well, then you get into the whole argument of, well, what is single family is, do we count single family attached the same as single family detached?
And
some cities do and some cities don't.
Off the top of my head, I think we do have somewhere in our, again, I'd have to dive into it further. We have somewhere where it defines single family to an extent.
Yeah.
But trying to give you the feedback to me, you're the one that has to decide whether it's worth it or not. We're just trying to give you this.
Let me just wrap it up. I'm not feeling a lot of resistance. I'm hearing, if you want to spend the time, maybe it's going to take a long time, probably 6 months.
Oh, at least, yeah.
Probably. And the reason for that is just multiple hearings with all the neighbors.
Just the process itself. The reason, even if we were able, you had something concept was checked off at the box here, you're 3 months to get the rezone because you get our sign off here at the project management level, then you have to go to the planning commission for a public hearing and the city council the following month. Okay, so I can't just go to planning commission. I have to get through whatever hurdles you raise here, which are not. I mean, I don't know what they. I don't know that I call them hurdles. Yeah, I kind of do. Yeah, but it would basically it would be setback issues, or would it be engineering stuff, or would it just be layout, or like a?
It'd probably be more layout because it's all conceptual at the rezone level.
Okay,
so we don't really get into the engineering too much until.
Right, and we're trying to figure out how much money to spend to determine stuff I need to know at some point, like the geotech delineation. I mean, that ain't free, and I'm not spending it if we don't have a shot. Right. Okay, so.
Well, we wouldn't require that until after.
Is there like, does the city have a PUD? Our typical deal, if there is such thing, is a PUD, and because this is what it is. It's a PUD. Mm-hmm. Because it's common area, it's islands of lots floating on common area. Is that doable in the city? We don't have a PUD. We do not have an ordinance. The only thing that comes close is our mixed use. And the development agreement. So the development agreement would stipulate the setbacks, road design, couple all the amenities, whatever we're bringing in. That's where you deal with the PUD type issues. Yeah, and did you reference the Ben Lomond project? Oh, Palermo's deal, yeah. So that one, for example, he's coming to us to try to sell us stuff. Well, and the only reason I bring that up is that development is governed by the master development agreement. Yeah, I'm sure that. Gosh, that deal took years, right? Right, 3 years. I think I built that whole thing and was out of it while he was still dinking around. Not dinking around. I know. I've worked with Palermo in the past. I'm not going to buy any of this stuff. So, trying to figure out what to do next. Well, we'll leave that up to you. Yeah. So I can do the city side of the information. So last question: your best guess if we had everything done and we're not really. I mean, it was all prepared properly. There's not really anything to negotiate on it that you would have heartburn with our layout or whatever, just to get through the changing the general plan is at least 6 months. No, it's 3 months for a rezone application. But you're saying the general plan to R120 for half-acre lots? With the no, for mixed use. Mixed use, yeah. With the development agreement, minimum 6. It would be a minimum of 6 months by the time
he gets to the rezone, sure. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Like the change to the general plan could probably be within 3 months, but
the mixed use plan, to get a negotiation
in the rezone at least. Yeah.
I wouldn't even and it's just it's just moving it through the process and negotiating, having a committee set up. We usually bring a commissioner, a city council member to the table with staff. We hash out. So
the issue is going to be whether, I mean, the bottom line is, does the city want this product? 1, 2, do they want, because if we go away and they've already changed the general plan to mixed use, do we want mixed use in this spot? That's really the question I would be asking if I were on the planning
And that's the question you're
asking. You can't count on us, you gotta count on.
Right.
Well,
it's changed if you guys leave.
Right. So I guess that's really the question is, can you envision this parcel? I mean, not living here. What is the proper zone for this parcel? Is mixed use it? I mean, mixed use might be it for us, but is it if we go away?
Right.
That's my question. I mean, are you still as comfortable? Or, I mean, I probably wouldn't be.
Well, the city has had a lot of applications for that parcel, and we've pitched just about everything to the community over on 750 West. The most recent was manufacturing and expanding our manufacturing, which was a huge no from the public on that. So, and then it was 2 or 3 years ago that they pitched this cluster development that I referred to earlier that was also denied. So
it's probably 5 years ago.
Why was it? What?
The community came out against the rezone application and they did not approve it.
This traffic was at because sometimes it's harder to be against grandma and grandpa. But nobody wants to see their field developed where their kids play.
But I can only give you what our experience has been here.
Well, that's what
because that's the best indicator of the future decisions they're going to make.
Yeah.
What we've decided in the past.
But if they shut down a residential development.
Can I interject here? I think you've got a completely different planning commission and city council than you did.
Oh, well, that's a valid point because politics changes and frankly, 20 years ago, nobody knew what the heck this thing is that we started doing. And now we've got all sorts of developers literally copied. Nielsen Homes copied our stuff and
there's a need. There absolutely is a need.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and I can't speak for the residents, of course, over there, but Mayor brings up a good point. It's a different commission and city council. I kind of like the idea of having these bigger lots kind of add a little bit of buffer.
Yeah,
back to
I mean, we're always trying to, accommodate what we perceive to be the potential issues with the neighbors. Let me just and we have a project in Levi, our third project in Levi, which is exactly like this. It was an A1, it's a low zone in the city. And ours was, I don't know, not at the higher density, but all the residents knew our stuff because we got 2 other communities there. And every single one of the people in the adjacent, so I think every single one came out to the planning commission meeting and voted for our thing because they knew we weren't going to add any traffic to their subdivision, and all of our houses are single family, so we're going to have these packed in 2-story houses looking over the fence.
Right.
So
there's a lot. I mean,
so anyway, all right.
A lot of benefits for it.
Real quick, a few engineering issues. Just
sewer is really
sewer
detention. Is it detention or retention?
It would be detention, but I think what we would probably do is that wet area in the back. Look at doing a large basin back there that would take, because there's an existing creek, 6 Mile Creek, that runs along the north property line, kind of comes through, creates that wet area,
all right,
gets over and. So I think
does it go through under the tracks?
It goes under the tracks and dumps back.
Okay, so it has now.
Yes.
Okay, and do you know the sewer situation?
When we looked at this development 4 or 5 years ago, what we would likely need to do, I mean, we have a sewer line out in 750 West, but
can I get there? Ours are slab on grade.
You may be okay. Slab on, well, although we don't really generally have basements in the city because I have groundwater, but we looked at taking the west half of that development out to the sewer in Pleasant View, so that
so that's just an interlocal agreement,
right? And that was doable, and Pleasant View sounded like they were amenable to that.
Well, yeah, I've already talked to Pleasant View because it's not Pleasant View City. That's actually whatever the sewer. Yeah, whatever.
Well, there's a Central Weaver line up there, but it would have to tie into a Pleasant View sewer first.
Oh, okay.
But we did look into that, and it is doable.
Okay.
Where you could take whatever couldn't get out to 750 West, you could take out too.
So there's no basis either way, even on a half-acre lot stuff looks like.
Unless the geotech comes back and says it's doable and tells us.
Well, they help you on. Anyway, okay, well those were my main engineering questions.
And then the other issue you may have is just with your concept drawing right there. you may need a second access.
That's a number of units.
Right, right, bring up, because you can only have 30.
I forgot all about you sitting here. Actually, in my experience, the guy that actually runs the city, the mayor thinks he does, but it's so when a stub out here,
well, that's
suffice, or am I got to?
Double at a single family or multi-family, because that changes everything.
It depends on how the city defines this. I don't know what we are. I mean, I say single family attached, but we have been defined as multi-family.
You can only put 30 homes on one single family access.
And there's probably a distance on the length too, right? Like 750 or something.
Kind of stuff, but you're not. There's no length in there. You can have 30 homes because you don't have the one access point.
What if I did a double? If I lost some loss and did a double road? Would that?
Yeah. I think that's how.
That's how. Yeah.
I hate doing that because you go a bunch of loss, but I should have. So a stub out's not going to count because you got to be able to get to it. Right.
Do you have a guarantee that it's going to get developed?
No,
that plan.
No, I'm looking at the parcels. This is looking at these parcels. It's the old strategy where Grandpa carved up his property into 5-acre, 50 feet wide, 3,000 feet deep parcels. So those are really hard to do anything.
Unless everybody's on the same page, right?
Put them all in, and it doesn't matter.
You know, that's not actually. We haven't
that.
done
I mean,
that.
I guess my code, but the city code might say different.
Well, that's probably.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think we do say 30, but I think that's based on the fire.
Well, it's not going to be more than 40. I've never seen that anywhere. Normally it's like 32, 36 or something. But, okay. All right. Picking up enough time. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can tie this thing up long enough to do it. That's kind of our next question. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Rick Peterson, you still with us?
Yes, eventful morning for you guys. Yes, thanks for having me. So hopefully ours is a little bit more straightforward than what you had to deal with so far this morning. But we have this 2.67 acres that's at the corner of North Harrisville Road and 700 North, which is zone CP2 under contract. So a couple of different questions, just kind of wanted to get a preliminary thought on a car wash there on that corner. It does appear according to the code that it is a permitted use. And so this is just our preliminary site plan of what that car wash might be. The real big question, I guess, for us in purchasing this piece of ground would be that the one use would be the car wash, which would take 1.25 acres of that parcel, leaving us with 1.4 something left. And want to know kind of the time frame process to have that subdivided.
So a commercial subdivision is what you would be applying for.
Correct, yes.
And it's the normal subdivision process as far as the preliminary requirements that are outlined in our code. So our subdivision processes here, you would do an application and preliminary approval. Plat, its requirements are, this is the pre-application meeting. You would probably come back with a subdivision because this is more of a site plan.
Yeah, where this is where you've got to do a subdivision, if you're proposing to do a subdivision, it's just a 2-lot. Could he do preliminary and final at the same time?
Yep, absolutely.
I don't see the need.
There wouldn't be is there any public infrastructure?
There's going to be some, the one
Other than tying into our infrastructure?
Yeah, I do see an issue with that. As part of the subdivision plat, I think you could do that as preliminary and final at the same time instead of breaking it into 2. And then
Preliminary and final at the same time, okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's check real quick and see if our code allows that at a plan. Is that a planning commission for our small subdivisions? Somewhere in here for
That's right.
minimum lot size.
To do the subdivision, how long of a process is that generally?
Well, that's what I'm looking up here, because if it doesn't require city council, because it's a small subdivision, it would be a month shorter process.
Okay.
I can't remember if it's called small
subdivision.
Is it small subdivision? There we go.
The requirements of 10.
A plat is required, but certain formalities can be deferred at the recommendation of the plant project management. No public hearing is required. The mayor.
I need to see what the
approved by the
definition
planning commission. So a small subdivision doesn't say lot size. That's odd.
Do I need to look at that code?
Oh, gotcha.
I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Do you want to
the
throw that in and
definition.
see what 10.9A.605? I think it's number of lots. Ten or fewer. So, yeah, it would definitely it would be a small subdivision allowed under Utah code of less than 10 lots, and it just requires planning commission approval. So that would cut a month off of it.
Okay.
And we could do preliminary and final. I don't see any issue. As long as there were no conditions, you didn't have any issue. Now North Harrisville Road is going to require a UDOT access.
Yeah.
So you will have to have a UDOT access permit for connection on North Harrisville Road.
And that may be more, because that's not necessarily has to be
not
shown
part
on
of
the
the
subdivision. I mean, on the plat, right? Because you just
Correct. Yeah, that would just be
Right.
That's just more on the site.
That's
Because I think your process here is you got two things going, get your subdivision approved, the plat approved, and get your site plan approved.
Yep.
correct.
And
Yep.
both at the planning commission level. Site plans are approved under our planning commission.
Okay.
But yes, the access permit would be at that point.
Okay.
That'd be a requirement of the site plan. And there is an issue with where you're showing a connection to 700 North, right? Because that's a commercial connection to
To a residential
street,
road.
which isn't allowed unless there's an exception given. Right.
Yeah, we had a variance hearing because of the type of business it was approved recently, but a car wash wasn't gonna, because it was a photo studio and it was gonna have minimal impact. They were gonna have literally the same amount of traffic as if somebody lived there. So the hearing officer approved that, and this would not obviously qualify as low traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
And our code does say that we can't combine that.
So is that the only access? I mean, if that's not an option off of 700 North, is our only option to get the UDOT access and have in and out on Harrisville Road?
Yeah,
That's what I think,
Okay.
I think we'd have a hard time getting that with 700 North, especially.
Oh, yeah.
for residents.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from there. Okay, well, that's great feedback. We'll go back and rediscuss that. So once we submit the commercial subdivision application, is that something that we get approved in a meeting like this, like under like 1 month, or is it a longer process than that?
Well, preferably, say this had been your subdivision instead of a site plan, we could have given you that approval as long as we didn't see any major issues. So if you had that for us in December at this meeting, we could approve it and get you through planning commission the next month. But where we haven't seen the subdivision, I'm hesitant to say that we can give that approval at this meeting because we just don't know what that looks like yet. But we would be okay to even review that. It's the staff that's here that would review it.
It depends on if, well, I don't want to.
For subdivision,
If it came through and we were able to get reviews done, I mean, if you got it, if you had it prepared, the other thing is our plats are reviewed by Weaver County as well.
Okay.
So we need approval from Weaver County Surveyor's Office on the plats. So honestly,
and our subdivision is 25 days.
Yeah.
Our code says 25 days in advance of the meeting, you want to get approval for subdivision. So, I mean, you're knocking on December's door if you had it to us today.
Yeah, so you're likely, especially with getting the county's approval, I would think the quickest you could probably be on a planning commission agenda for approval, that would be January.
And what's the January date, do you know?
Yes, it's January, well, that's 2020.
Not that one.
You're good. I'll look it up.
Well,
That's the same.
maybe it's
January 12th.
2023.
The 11th.
11th.
The 11th.
The 11th.
Okay. Oh, the 11th. Okay.
January 11th.
January 11th, which means I think we need to have it
25
by
days
the
prior.
16th of December.
Okay. And that's just another one of these weekly meetings that you guys do, correct?
That is actually, well, we would review it in December because we'll have this meeting regardless. You know, we're gonna have this meeting in December, so it'd be a good chance for us to go over your project. And then you would be on January's planning commission.
Do you have the date for the December meeting?
December meeting would be
14th.
the 14th of December.
Oh, sorry. Are you talking? You're talking project
management, December 8th.
December 8th.
December 8th. Okay, that would give us our 25 days before the January 11th.
Yep.
They'd have a week after that.
Yeah, you'd even get feedback because of the way our meeting schedule is in December. You'd get some feedback from us at this meeting. If there were any issues, you could have them corrected and still meet that 25-day deadline for January.
A week later. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. Well, then we'll have our deadline the 8th to make sure that we get everything done by then for as far as the plat subdivision goes.
I'd have your surveyor get it over to the county as soon as possible though, because I can't say how long that'll take.
And that's Weaver County, right?
Yeah.
And you know how December goes.
Yes.
And because we're doing preliminary and final in the same meeting, we can't have any conditions on the approval process. It's got to be a clean memo.
Right.
That makes sense. One last question for you. How does water work inside the city for a commercial project like this?
Yeah, we're in Bonta Vista Water District, and unfortunately, they are usually here at this meeting, but they were not today. So Bonta Vista Water District is who provides the water services.
Okay.
We are working through our landscaping requirements because the culinary water connection is contingent on having a pressurized, but I don't know, there's no pressurized water in this area. So that's going to be something you're going to have to work out too. We have gotten creative in counting the detention areas, sort of.
Well, you may
try to meet that landscaping requirement.
Bonta Vista Water, they used to allow a certain percentage of the site to be watered with culinary for outdoor, and they changed that. You know, with the drought restrictions, they don't allow outdoor water. But there have been some cases where if you do a nice xeriscape plan and it's very minimal outdoor watering and you can show what the use would actually be, you could submit that to Bonta Vista and see if they'll approve that.
Okay.
But
it sounds like that's secondary to doing everything else.
Yeah, I mean, the subdivision.
But the water is available to purchase or whatever through Bonta Vista.
Right.
I would check to see the amount.
Yeah.
For culinary, especially for car wash.
Yeah, I'd get just get with Bonta Vista.
Okay. These car washes generally take other cities between 2.5 and 3 acre-feet of water.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their requirements or availability.
Okay, I can call over to Bonta Vista.
you'll deal with us on stormwater and sewer are the utilities that the city maintains.
And you will need those service letters for your approval. You'll need service letters from all of the agencies. So Northview Fire, Bonavista, and Rocky Mountain Power, Questar Gas.
Okay. Hey, that sounds great. I think that answers
They need a central Weaver sewer. Is that our sewer or is that central Weaver?
They turn into our sewer. Wait, that's our sewer. Yeah.
Okay.
Is this one of those that has closed hours? We can put a condition on the hours that it's run. It's not going to be running on 24/7 because there are people right there.
I don't know if it's already commercial. We'd have to check the code for car wash. I believe it's in that allowed use already.
But does it have hour restrictions? Do you know? Do they close at night, Rick, or is this?
They do, yeah. It's all employee manned, so they shut usually 6 or 7 at night.
Okay.
It's not just like an auto car wash any time of the day or night.
Hey, any other questions for our team here?
I don't think so. Any other feedback or anything else that might be important for us?
No, I think we gave you the best answers for today.
you were our easiest.
Sorry, you had to wait till last.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the time. Thanks for taking it.
Real quick, Rick, you could kind of be working on the site plan concurrently, at the same time as the subdivision plat if you want.
Okay.
And if your engineer needs any info, just have them reach out. We can get utility info to them that we have.
Perfect. That's great. Thanks so much.
Probably have to take the sewer to 700 North.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey,
thanks for your time. I appreciate it.